Hello, and thank you very much for joining me again today. Now, I've been asked several times, in fact now, by Dave McGirr for a video on the lost pubs of Kinver. And I must admit, it actually sounds like a really good idea, so that's what we're going to be up to today. To kick off, I'm going to head off to Staunton first, which, strictly speaking, it isn't Kinver, but if I don't include the pub in question there, I dare say I'm going to get a few complaints and a few folks saying I should have included it. So either way, whether you want it there or not, we'll start at Staunton at the Stew Pony. This is the original Stew Pony and Foley Arms, which dates from at least 1744, maybe earlier. Unfortunately, this building itself was demolished around about 1935, 1936 because of road improvements, and was replaced by a much larger building which included an outdoor Lido swimming pool, if you like. That building itself unfortunately suffered the same fate. It was demolished around about 2002, again for road improvements. They were going to build an island, traffic island there, but that never happened. So I think the junction was modified very slightly and they built these flats there instead. So next we move on to the Lock Inn, which is here on the right hand side, diagonally opposite to the Vine, right by the canal there. I believe it was opened around about 1770, roughly at the same time as the canal, but I'm not sure as to when it was closed and demolished. I thought probably early 1900s, but there was a gasworks built here in the 1860s, so I'm not sure if it was demolished at that time. Perhaps somebody out there will know. Then we move on to the Stag Inn, which here in Mill Lane, on the corner that is now known as Stag Corner. Don't really know when it was opened. I know that it was closed for many years before it was finally demolished in 1975, which was shortly before I came to Kinver, so I never actually got to see it. So moving on to Dark Lane now, we come to the Anchor Inn, also known as the Anchor Hotel, which I know was recorded as being an inn in 1851, and I know it was still present in about 2007. I can remember going there with my parents for meals in the 1980s. I can also remember once having gone on a very long walk, called in to have a pint there, but was turned away because unfortunately under the terms of their licence they weren't allowed to serve just drinks if you hadn't booked a table. But anyway, as I say, it was still there in 2007. Not sure exactly when it was converted into private houses, but it was probably sometime not long after 2007. So heading into the High Street now, the first pub that we come to is was the Georgian Dragon. It's on the same side as Dr. Tanner's surgery, if you remember. Never had a pint in the Georgian Dragon. Although my wife used to park her car there on the car park when she used to work for Dr. Tanner in the early 1990s. Not sure exactly when it closed, but I do know that around about the year 2000 it was demolished and replaced by these flats. Although the building now looks very similar to the one that it replaced, in fact it looks like the appearance of the Georgian Dragon changed quite a bit over the years. This is just another view of the Georgian Dragon from a slightly different angle, and then you can see a modern comparison of how it looks today with the pub missing, and we're looking then down the road towards our next pub. So next along the High Street we come to the Car and Horses. This is actually literally right next door to the Georgian Dragon. Unfortunately I don't have any opening dates, closing dates or anything like that for you. All I can tell you is that it is closed, but the building still remains and has been beautifully restored. Well, the next lost pub on the list is the Unicorn. I know virtually nothing about it other than the fact that it was present in 1851 when the landlady was Mary Church. I have reason to believe that it was located here, but other than that I have no further info and I cannot confirm this 100%. So we'll have to move on to the next one. We then come to the Green Dragon. This was first licensed in 1718, and in the photograph here this was in 1898, shortly before it was rebuilt as a hotel in 1902. Unfortunately, the hotel wasn't very successful, and it later became the well-known Constitutional Club in 1936. So the next pub along the high street was the Red Lion. Here in this photo, probably taken sometime in the 1890s, I would say, still functioning as a pub then. After this it was a Chinese restaurant, and in fact it's had various guises as a restaurant before its current incarnation as the Bay Tree. So moving along the high street, and on the opposite side we come to the Crown. Now the Crown Inn, I know was, I don't know when it first opened. I know that in 1851 it was open. The landlady then was Rachel Hawkes. I know that in the 1940s, as you can see here, the Home Guard took it over as their headquarters during the war. There's another view here which I'm not entirely sure what the date is on this view here. I do know that eventually it became the Kinver restaurant. I know I went there a few times. Used to have a little bowling alley at the back. I think they eventually had some accommodation there as well, but eventually it all closed down. It became Aura Vida, the sort of health and well-being place, and I think now it's a sort of soft furnishings type shop, I think. Now the next one was a particular favourite of mine, the old Plow, right on the corner of Stone Lane. I'm not quite sure when it first opened. I know that unfortunately it closed and was demolished in 96, 97, thereabouts, being replaced by houses. Shortly prior to this, I know that the old landlord Tony Creed had died. His son had taken over for a little while. And I think shortly after that there was also a fire there, if I remember rightly. Now I have to thank Dave McGirr for this one, because before speaking to Dave about this I had no idea that this pub actually existed. This was down the Hyde. It used to be the Hyde Inn, later became the New Inn, and it used to serve the workers at the spade works down there. It's now a private home. So now we move on to White Hill. This pub you can just about make out there, just off centre, was the Spring Gardens, which was later rebuilt as the Spring, then demolished and replaced by the new Rose and Crown round about 1938. And it still used to be referred to as the Spring by locals, even though it was officially the Rose and Crown. Then if we next head off up Enville Road, we come to the Crown and Anchor on the left hand side. In this photo here, it's just about to be converted into the flats that it has become. In days gone by, wife and I would have a drink here from time to time, usually in the beer garden at the back in the summer. Still on Enville Road, now right on the brow of the hill as you leave the village, is another one of what used to be our favourite haunts. The wife and I used to enjoy a pint here, usually when it was really quiet in the winter. Sometimes we'd sit outside in the garden too, but unfortunately now gone as and simply a private house. If you look in the modern photo, you look closely just above the garage, they've actually retained the elm tree sign. I'm not sure if that's an original or whether it's a reproduction. And finally, I've also found reference to another pub in Enville Road that was called the Cottage of Content. Unfortunately, I can find absolutely no information whatsoever when it opened, when it closed, or where it was located. So somewhere on Enville Road there used to be the Cottage of Content. Maybe somebody knows where it was and could let us know. Right, well that's pretty much it for today's video. Hope you've enjoyed it. There's still a few pubs missing. There is a record in 1555 of a pub called the Cock. Where that was, what happened to it, absolutely no idea. There's also a pub called the Swan, which is a record of that in 1851. at which time William Matthews was the landlord there. Again, no idea where that was. Now, there's also supposedly was a pub in Windsor Holloway. I don't have the name for that or any other information on that. It's possible that could be one of those two. I don't know. There is also a Rock Tavern, which is listed really early on, about 1830. And I believe that was somewhere in the Gothersley or Greensforge area, somewhere around there. But sadly got no details on that at all. So I can't really help you with that one. So other than that, that's pretty much it. I'm going to leave you with a list of Kinver pubs past and present. I'll leave that scrolling in a moment. I'll start at the Whittington and I'll run through to Enville, list all the pubs that I'm aware of. If you know more, or if you know any more information about any of the pubs that we've looked at today, I'd love to hear from you in the comments section. Also, if you can subscribe to the channel, that would be brilliant. You'll then get notifications every time there's a new video out. And at the very least, if you want to leave me a like, if you've liked the video, that would be much appreciated. So other than that, I'll see you next time.